So I'm speaking with composer Matt Quayle, whose immersive body of work has quickly made him one of the premier talents in film and television. Mac started his career writing additional music and doing music programming, a lot of it with composer Cliff Martinez. Recently, Mac has been behind one of the best seasons of American Horror Story yet, Freak Show, which he took over composing duties, and is continuing his collaboration with Ryan Murphy as he is behind the music of the upcoming Scream Queens premiering on Fox in the fall, and he has Mr. Robot premiering on USA on June 24th. Mac, thanks so much for your time and for speaking today.
Hey, Kaya. It's really nice to be here.
So to start, let's go to the beginning. How did you get into music, and when you were younger, and at what point did you decide that film and TV music would be the career path you wanted to pursue?
Well, my parents took me at age 6 and put me into the church choir. And that was my first venture into music.
Wow.
And, progressing from there, piano lessons, high school band and orchestra, rock bands. And then I ended up in New York City, and I was in the music business there. And I worked as a keyboard player, programmer, producer, and dance remixer. And did a lot of work making dance music, turning like pop, R&B, and rock songs into dance records.
Wow.
And that was really great until sort of the music business started its kind of first decline, which was in the beginning of the 2000s. And when that started to happen, I thought maybe it was time to leave New York, and I set my sights on Los Angeles. I came out here maybe 11 years ago, and with a vague idea of maybe getting into film and TV. And that vague idea turned into my first job as an additional composer working for Michael Levine on the TV show Cold Case.
Oh, right, yes.
And that was just such a great opportunity and experience because I had a little bit of knowledge about how to write to picture, but after 4 seasons with Michael, I learned so much about it. And during that time, I met Cliff Martinez, and then continued working with him, and have done, I don't know, like 12 films with him.
I know you guys been really busy together.
Yeah, Cliff is great. He's so he's got such an original voice, and just a super nice guy. It's been great, and such great projects too. I mean, he really curates the types of things he works on.
Absolutely.
So it's always very interesting and edgy.
And I mean, he has, I think, one of the greatest composer-director relationships out there with Steven Soderbergh. So, I mean, I guess bearing witness to that versus, I think, probably working with Michael was really about, the nitty-gritty, working on a series television like that. But I'm sure seeing that relationship with Cliff and Steven must have been really, I guess, inspiring for a composer to witness.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. It's certainly been a great relationship for the two of them. And, just watching Cliff, his relationships with all the directors, it was really valuable to me to watch how he would navigate all the different scenarios and personalities. And because it is such an important part of working in this job. I mean, making the music is one thing, obviously, but then, dealing with all the people that you deal with is a whole nother aspect of it.
Right. And you've done an amazing show with Ryan Murphy, American Horror Story, and now you're doing Scream Queens with him. So in television, the showrunner, I guess, would be the equivalent of kind of the director of a film. So what kind of process do you go with Ryan or any showrunner or director from the start to beginning? I mean, what are kind of the initial conversations about, and do you have to kind of adapt yourself to their personality depending on who you're working with?
Well, definitely, because everyone's different. Everyone has a different way of wanting to work, and Ryan is more about just like he has a vision for how he wants the music to sound, and it's more about sort of a feel or a style rather than the details about every little note or exactly where this hits or that hits. It's an overall feeling. And so some initial discussions are about what particular style that might work for the season. I mean, that's how it started with Freak Show.
Right.
Was they were kind of looking for a new direction, which is how I got the call.
Right, because Jimmy was doing the first few seasons, and
yes,
and you guys you took over. And this one, I mean, the circus scenario, that must have been an amazing playground for a composer.
It was a lot of fun. There was definitely some circusy type music to be explored. The initial style was this sort of 50s sci-fi music. That was the first cue that I wrote that had got them to hire me was this sound. They kind of dubbed it 50s sci-fi strings, and it was kind of a mixture of these sort of old sounding violin lines mixed with a theremin over some slightly electronic pulsing, and then that became just so used throughout the season. It was in every episode in some form.
Wow. So, I mean, and the great thing about American Horror Story, which is it pioneered this kind of anthology type of storytelling. So, I mean, do you find it more, I guess, creatively or succinct that you just have to do one season story arc, or is it versus a show where you're going on for seasons upon seasons upon seasons?
Well, I mean, the only experience I've had with this season upon season was with Cold Case, and my role was very different there. And that show is a very different type of show because it wasn't a long story arc, even within one season. It was each show had its own story and time period. So it was a very different thing. This is my first show, American Horror Story, on my own, so I don't really have too much to compare it to. Hotel will be starting up in a couple of months, I believe, for me, and that's going to be yet another story with a different style of music. So, I'll see. Ask me this time next year.
Okay.
And I'll let you know what it's like doing the second season of a show where it's a completely different story.
I was gonna ask you if you're doing hotels. That's really awesome that you're coming back for that. But this clearly led to a great collaboration with Ryan Murphy. So, and you're doing Scream Queens, which stars Emma Roberts and Jamie Lee Curtis, and it's being billed as a horror comedy. I mean, it's coming out in the fall, but have you guys started working on it yet? I mean, what kind of musical approach are you planning to take with it?
Well, we have started working on it, and I can't really say yet about the musical approach. It's only in general terms that. There is funny moments, and there's some, as you would expect from the Ryan Murphy camp, there's some pretty horrific, over the top moments, and the way that the two are blended, and it's really quite something. I'm having a lot of fun with it.
That's awesome.
And really curious to see how people are going to react.
So I mean, we can't wait. I mean, I can't wait. So we'll definitely be tuning in. And and you have a show a little bit closer now that's coming out. I think at the end of the month, June 24th, Mr. Robot, which takes place in kind of the technology hacker world thriller. So did you decide to go with an electronic soundscape for that? What was the approach for this one?
Yes, this is very electronic.
So. And it follows a hacker, and he's kind of torn between two worlds, right? Kind of, he's working for a company, but there's an underground movement to overtake it.
That is definitely what's known at this point. They have released the pilot last week online.
Right. Yes. And
yes, he's torn between two worlds, and I'm really excited about this show too. It's I mean, the pilot I thought was great when I first saw it, and now I've been working on a few more episodes, and it just keeps getting better. And I know that if I wasn't working on it, I would be anxiously awaiting it to come out to watch it.
That's awesome. So, I mean, you're kind of really getting your feet wet on these different series, and really each one is kind of its own soundscape and its own world. I mean, where do you start? Like, I mean, you're starting from the beginning. What's kind of the first thing to do when you shape, I guess, shape the sound of a show? Do you start playing with melody, with theme? Are you looking at the visual style, the characters, the plot? What's really kind of the first thing that speaks to you to kind of get, I guess, the first note out of you?
Well, I mean, my job as a composer is I'm a collaborator. You know, I'm a collaborator with who is the people that are creating the show, and so the initial thing to start with is the discussions with them about what they have going on in their mind, what they're looking for, and out of those discussions, there's a starting point. And then with that starting point, I go into the studio and start to create. And sometimes it's a melody, sometimes it's just some sounds. My process tends to be, varied. I just start throwing things at the wall, so to speak, and I see what sticks. And if there's a melody right away, then that's great, and then I build around that. If it's just some grooves or some textures or rhythms or what have you, then it starts from there, and the melody comes later.
So, kind of going back to that kind of 50s sci-fi thing that you did for American Horror Story, like, where did that come from? Why did you end up settling on that?
Well, the show took place in 1952, and there was kind of an aspect with the subject matter and the freak show and just some of the characters that it just seemed to fit. It just seemed to be the kind of thing that was working really well with the images, and we had talked about it, and they thought it was a great idea, and I went into the studio and wrote something, and they were like, "Yes, that's the sound."
That's the thing you want to hear too. Probably a relief for a composer.
Well, in this case, it was even more than a relief, because it was like, "You're hired."
Yeah, that's another great thing to hear too.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, I was going to ask you too about I talked to Jimmy about this when I just interviewed him a few days ago. The main theme, which was for American Horror Story, which of course was composed by Charlie Clouser, way back, even Jimmy said before he was even hired. So, but it takes on a new shape. It's kind of strange because it's the one reoccurring really thing between all the seasons besides the actors, but it takes kind of its new soundscape every season. Did you kind of make it that kind of creepy circus vibe, or is Charlie involved at all with the rearranging of the theme, or is that kind of all the composer who's currently working on the show?
No, I believe Charlie did the refresh.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, and what a great job, I thought.
Yeah,
it was so perfect, and the visuals, it just worked. It worked great. Yeah, that was Charlie's doing to update it for the circus carnival vibe.
It was I loved. I think I liked that intro. The main title sequence the best out of all of them so far. It was really good. But to wrap up, I always like to ask composers this one question. If you could score any film ever made, pretending the original score never existed, which film would you choose?
Wow, you could have given me this question yesterday so I could have thought about it for 24 hours. Any film ever made.
What's the ideal playground that you would have loved or would love to just kind of live in as a composer? No disrespect to the original score, no disrespect, pretending that it never existed.
Wow, that's a really tough one. And I'm just gonna pull out a wild choice here. Did it even have a score? It did, but Metropolis.
Oh, perfect one, yeah.
I mean, I guess it had that piano,
right?
Like, and yeah, I think that would have been a great one to do.
Well, that's an awesome choice. I don't think it's always interesting because I don't think anyone has ever said that yet. So, but Mac, thank you so much for your time, and really been enjoying your music lately, and can't wait for all the next season of American Horror Story and Scream Queens and Mr. Robot and everything that comes ahead in the future. So hopefully we can talk again soon.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.